Hello everyone. In this tutorial we are going to be creating a room in one-point perspective. What's special about this one is instead of looking at it like we're standing on the floor, we're going to be looking down at the room, which is something we call bird's eye view. So it's going to be kind of like we're hanging on the ceiling or looking down from a bunk bed or something at the rest of the room. So to get started, you'll need a ruler and a pencil and probably an eraser. You'll be doing a little bit of that. So we'll get started by drawing a rectangle. And this rectangle is going to be the floor of your room. Depending on the size of the rectangle, your floor might be very small, so it might be that you have very tall ceilings. Or if your rectangle is larger, it might show that you're a little bit closer to the floor, and so you might have a more narrow ceiling. I'm going to kind of go for something in the middle. You're going to want to have 90-degree angles on your rectangle so that your walls start to line up as you work. So once we have a rectangle, again this is the floor, we are going to work outwards. But first what we need is to actually create a little X from corner to corner. Draw this very lightly because you're going to need to erase what's inside this box. Your X is actually going to go out from the box. So these lines outside of the box are actually the sides of your wall, and then very lightly draw it inside the box, and then you can go a little bit darker on the outside. So here we have sort of the corners of the wall. Inside we're going to erase this, but we do need it there to start. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So line up your corners, lightly draw inside the box, and then a little harder on the outside. So now we have 4 walls. We can add sort of boundaries to the walls if we want. It's up to you. It could just go to the edges of your paper if you want to do that. But what I want you to do is right where the X, where the 2 lines meet, we're going to create a point. And this is going to be your vanishing point. So you'll remember from other perspective information that the vanishing point is where all objects appear to vanish. So that's kind of where everything gets sucked down into in your drawings. We'll need this point, but eventually, way at the end, we'll be able to erase it. So don't draw it so dark that you can't erase it. Once I have my point drawn, I am able to erase the light lines that I drew inside because we don't need these anymore. So what I'm going to get started with is some windows. I think my room needs some windows. Perhaps I'll have one right here. So when we do things in perspective, you need to keep in mind that any of these sides are going to be converging lines. So if we remember, a converging line is a line that goes to the vanishing point. When we see these lines, if we know that anything that's going the same direction as these lines will need to be a converging line. Then when we look at these lines here, we see that they are parallel. They go straight up and down. They're parallel to one another. So we know that any lines going that way are going to be parallel to these. It takes a little bit of practice, but eventually you'll start to see the pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the top and bottom of my window. And I think I might want to make it like a tall, or like a window that's up really high, so it's like you can't reach it. And then I'm going to make converging lines to match that. I'm just going to draw a line in between here because I know that my ruler is hitting the vanishing point. If you are really concerned about that, you can draw a line all the way down. Just keep in mind you're going to have to erase most of it. Then I'll draw the other side, so I make sure my ruler lines up with the vanishing point. And I'll just draw in between there. I can erase the extra lines that are on the outside. And there is a start to a window. Now, we know that windows are three-dimensional. Usually there's kind of a section sticking out. So what I'm going to do is draw sort of the insides of that window, because we'd be able to see the sides and the bottom of it. So again, making converging lines. And then we're going to have a parallel line. And then all we need to do is just kind of connect these corners here. So now it looks like we're kind of looking into the window frame. I think next I'll need a door, so I'll need to figure out where I want to enter my room. I'm going to make the top of the door just with a parallel line, so it's parallel to the floor and the top. And then the sides of the door are going to be converging lines. So there's the first start. Maybe we want to have a frame around the door. So I'm going to make two more converging lines on either side. What I can do from here is kind of add some depth to it. So maybe it's a little thicker. It's coming out of the wall. So now we have just a little more depth to our door. Maybe I'll open it just a little bit. So maybe we would see like a little crack of another room right here, and the door would be swinging open. So yet another converging line because it's going. So now we have a door that's kind of opening. What I can do is erase this part of the floor because there probably wouldn't be a line there. And then we kind of see some depth on the inside of the door frame. All right, now we have a lot more depth going on here. What I think I'll do next is maybe add some furniture. So if I want to do anything on the floor, if it's sitting directly on the floor, it's actually just going to be a rectangle. So say I want to do the bed. So what I'm going to do is just kind of bring it up onto this corner. So now we have just the basics of a bed sitting here. We could add pillows. Maybe I want my pillow to be coming up onto the wall a little bit. It's kind of bent, like someone had been sleeping there. We can add some bedding. I want it to look kind of messy. We wouldn't really see anything outside of this other than maybe like a little bit of volume for the blanket. Unless if it's on the floor, then maybe say it's like pooling onto the floor here. I'll add some wrinkles to make it look more like it's sitting on the ground. And I'm going to erase this straight line here to give it a little fluff. When I'm drawing the lines on here, I'm just kind of giving them some volume by curling them a little so we know that the bed isn't perfectly flat. If it were perfectly made, these lines could be just a nice checkerboard or something without any wrinkles, but I want to give it a little bit of volume. Alright, so now we have a messy bed. I think next I'll make a dresser. So we'll start with the back of it. That's going to be parallel to the floor and to the ceiling. Sides are going to be converging lines. This is actually going to be the side of it. So the top is another rectangle because we're looking directly down at it. Then we have this corner here. I'm going to make another converging line there, and that's going to be the other side of the dresser. And here's another corner, so kind of like when we make a box in one-point perspective, we're just connecting the corners. And I'm just going to stop when I hit the floor because that's really where the end of the dresser would be. So these lines will also kind of stop at the floor. And then I'm going to add the parallel lines to create the edges. So it's parallel to the sides. All right, so basically we just have a box now. It's more or less a dresser. So what I could do is if I wanted closed drawers in my dresser, the sides would be converging lines. So now I have two drawers right here. Now I think my next drawer I want to actually be open. So I'm going to start with my parallel line. And then from here I'm going to draw some parallel lines going out, and that's going to be kind of the inside of the drawer that we're seeing. I'm just going to erase this here because I know it'll be covered up, and right now it's confusing me. So I have the top of the drawer. That's what we see looking into it. Create some converging lines from the corners to show the front face of it. And then one more parallel line to show the bottom of the front face of the drawer. Now I could add clothes or socks or whatever's in here. Maybe there's a monster coming out of it. It could be anything. I kind of just want to draw a hand coming out of this. Because why not? We're using our imagination. Alright, now we have a dresser. If I wanted to put anything on the dresser, say maybe like a picture frame or something, I think this definitely needs some curtains. I'm going to make a curtain rod. And I want them to be kind of like fluttering in the breeze, like the window's open. So I'm going to start with some really light converging lines just to know if the curtains would go, if they were flat, they would go down like this. So if my curtains were just hanging straight down, they would just be converging lines with a parallel line, maybe a little curvy line to show that they're folded. But I want to kind of make them coming out a little bit. So now they look a little more fluttery. Alright, so now we have some fluttering curtains in our window. We've got a monster coming out of the dresser. Maybe we need some posters. Maybe this is a cool kid's room. So what I'll do is the top and bottom will be parallel, the sides will be converging lines. I don't know, if you're anything like me, I don't think I had a single ounce of space on my walls. Everything was covered in movie posters and band posters and artwork and all kinds of crazy stuff. So maybe we'll just make a lot. We'll overlap them. It'll just be tons. Okay, so let's pretend that these are a lot of posters. The main thing that you want to keep in mind is that everything's getting kind of sucked down to this vanishing point. So we aren't just going to draw it like we'd regularly see it. You probably even want to like turn so you're facing in the direction it's going. I don't know. Say they're really into Jaws. I'm just going to kind of map out the letters. Keep in mind that everything is going to be converging lines. Um, so the letters will be bigger on the top than they are on the bottom. Otherwise, it's going to look like it's sticking out of the picture, and we don't really want that to happen. We want it to look like it's part of the wall. So, say like the S is stuck in this little box here. So everything's getting kind of like sucked in. I don't know, we'll just say there's a shark here. The main thing is just to make your stuff look like it's flat. So it's going to be kind of angled a little weird. Maybe I want part of my floor to be broken and caving in. Because why not? There's already a monster coming out of here. So I'm just going to draw like a crack. So now what I need to do is make it actually look like there's a hole there. So um, we're basically just going to like find corners, so to speak. So any edges of this that might line up with converging lines. So I'm just going to kind of swing my ruler around, just make little marks where I see sort of protruding edges. So once I've done that, then I can kind of just make parallel lines to show the sides of my objects. Make it look like it's that concrete falling out. Alright, then, I mean, if I shaded this or colored it, maybe I could like have some eyes poking out or something. There's some sort of monster with horns in here. This doesn't really seem like a bedroom I'd want to be staying in. So essentially, if you wanted to make anything else, as long as it has converging lines that come from the vanishing point, or um, maybe just parallel lines that are going up and down, and we could make stripes on the wall, we could change all kinds of things if we wanted to. So essentially, the main thing for perspective is that you have converging lines and parallel lines, and you can kind of expand as you go and make changes. As long as things are parallel and converging, then from there you can start to add curves and more details and make things look more three-dimensional. So that's the basics. Hope you enjoyed.